Welcome to the Expert Exchange, the podcast where knowledge meets success, with your host, Joshua Carnes, and expert guest, Eric Boyce. Today's show is brought to you by Lion Business Advisors.
The content in this show is for informational purposes only. You should not construe any such information or other material as legal, tax, investment, financial, or other advice. The Expert Exchange is not a fiduciary by virtue of any person's use of or access to this content. The Expert Exchange is not licensed to practice law or provide legal advice. Nothing contained within this show is intended to be an offer to either buy or sell securities.
Welcome to the Expert Exchange, the podcast where knowledge meets success. I'm your host, Josh Carnes, and on today's show, we're going to dive into the topic and the importance of local elections on local businesses with our expert guest, Eric Boyce. Eric, welcome to the show.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, Eric is with Boyce & Associates. You can find more on Eric and his team at boycewealth.com. That's BOYCE wealth.com.
At Lion Business Advisors, selling a business is not just a transaction. You've poured your heart and soul into your business. It's not just a paycheck, it's your legacy. The team at Lion Business Advisors is here to guide you through the process, ensuring your successful exit. Contact the team at Lion Business Advisors at 800-525-3542. That's 800-525-3542, or visit us at lionbusinessadvisors.com. Lion Business Advisors. Let the story of your next chapter begin with us.
So get ready to expand your horizons and refine your strategies as we dive into the importance of local elections on local businesses. On today's show, we have Eric Boyce. Eric is the co-founder and CEO of Boyce & Associates Wealth Consultant and Boyce & Associates Business Valuations. Eric has worked in finance, treasury management, investment research, and portfolio management since 1991 and has served in various leadership capacities in his 30-plus year professional career. Eric earned his BBA in finance from the University of Texas at Austin and has his MS in finance from the University of Texas at Dallas. Eric earned his Chartered Financial Analyst designation from the CFA Institute, previously earned his non-qualified plan advisor certificate, as well as designations of Charter Investment Council Certified Cash Manager. He is an active member and past president of the CFA Society of Austin. He is a member of the National Association for Certified Valuers and Analysts and the Society of Financial Professionals. Eric is also very active in the local community. He serves on the city council for the city of Cedar Park. He was a past president of the Cedar Park Economic Development Corporation and was the chairman of the City Planning and Zoning Commission. In addition to that, Eric serves in leadership with the Leander ISD Educational Excellence Foundation Board and actively supports local nonprofit organizations. He also serves as senior member of the investment committee for the Association of Seton Hospital Foundation and is previously the treasurer and investment committee chair for the Catholic Foundation for the Diocese of Austin, as well as several others. I just chopped it off right there. I just, figured people were going to get tired of that. So just kidding. Welcome to the show, Eric. How you doing?
Thanks, Josh. It's good to be with you. Good to be with you. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Yeah, no, I'm excited. So, at this time, at the elections coming up and local businesses, I thought it was a perfect time with you being a local business owner and happen to be involved with elections that we could kind of talk about the importance that local elections have on local businesses. But before we do that, why don't you take a moment, tell us a little bit about yourself, tell us about Boyce Wealth and what you do.
Oh, great. Well, thank you again for the opportunity. Well, I am, as you mentioned, CEO and founder of Boyce & Associates Wealth Consulting and Boyce & Associates Business Valuation. We have a team of 10 individuals. We're based in Cedar Park, but we work nationwide. And the idea was we wanted to work a lot with business owners as well as high net worth individuals and their families, but business owners that have a lot of their wealth tied up in the business. And we wanted to kind of like reinvent the definition of wealth management because we are independent. We're registered directly with the SEC, and we want to spend time with an owner while they're still in the business, so it's a more successful, prolific exit, and we can help generate wealth within the enterprise without being consultants. We're not management consultants, but we want to redefine wealth management in those terms to try to help business owners achieve a better exit, and obviously, want to help our clients achieve better and more successful retirement and then transfer that wealth into that next generation.
Perfect. And then besides being a business owner or local community, we kind of hit on, but you currently serve in local government, correct?
I do. I'm on the city council, place 4 for city of Cedar Park.
Awesome. So let's dive in. And how did you get involved with the local government aspect instead of just being a business owner?
Well, that's a very provocative question, because I think if we were having this conversation about 8 or 9 years ago, I would have told you there's no way in God's green earth that I would be in elected office. But one thing led to the other, and you'd mentioned in my introduction, I think I got real involved with the Chamber of Commerce, got to know other elected officials and business owners, and through that process, you get tagged as somebody who might be interested. And so the conversation led, and it was a pretty easy conversation for me, because I enjoyed service in a lot of different areas, from my faith community, University of Texas, on through other local nonprofits. And so when somebody piped up and said, "Hey, would you be willing to serve on a board or commission?" I said, "Sure, I'd be glad to give back to my city." So that led to my involvement with the Planning and Zoning Commission. I eventually chaired that. And then when that term ended, I left and was asked to become a part of the Economic Development Corporation Board, which provides incentives for companies to relocate into Cedar Park. And that was a very enjoyable situation. And after that, then there was an open seat on council, and one thing led to the other, and here I am.
They got you, huh?
Yeah, two terms later.
What does the health of the local economy look like here in Central Texas? How is that going for economic growth? Like, what is that looking like with just Central Texas and Cedar Park? I mean, they're almost touching right now, Austin and Cedar Park. So what does that look like?
Well, I think it certainly is a better profile than what we see on the national stage. And by and large, there's, statistics you look at that kind of indicate the economy is doing extremely well. We know that there's a certain degree of labor tightness here in the local market. But clearly we're in a better situation and have better circumstances in terms of overall growth potential and opportunity than other areas of the country. And so as a result, we are seeing net migration into Central Texas. So there is a lot of opportunity, but there's also constraints too. We know that, credit has been a little bit tighter, particularly for certain types of commercial development. And so we do see commercial development kind of bogging down a little bit and people becoming a bit more circumspect. You see the bankers become a little bit more persnickety on their deals and the types of conditions and overlays that they're putting on things. But, we clearly see a desire for companies to want to be here for a lot of different reasons, whether it's Samsung, right? And then you've got a major employer and you have all the second derivative businesses that want to be tied to that logistically, or, it's just companies that want a more favorable business climate, and so on and so forth. So certainly see a conducive environment, even though there are some constraints.
Yeah. From a municipal standpoint, what are some of the key opportunities for future growth, right? So obviously it's still growing. So what do you see as those key opportunities?
Well, the key opportunities are, if you look at it through a municipal lens, it's land use. Right. And so you're looking at your future land use map, you're looking at your major corridors, you're looking at the type of employers that you want and the type of industries that you want to focus on. And so, the wrong way to do it is be indiscriminate. And a lot of, municipalities, that have a lot of land left to develop, which Cedar Park is not in that camp. We only have about 15% of our land mass that's available to develop. And so, and so I think it's important to kind of look at, do some forward thinking, do some strategic planning that kind of helps you focus on the industries that are most important. Look at the employers that you have now. We have a major hospital in our backyard, and so
which is brand new and gorgeous, by the way.
Well, thank you. I didn't build it, but thank you. But so when you go through a strategic planning process, what we found is, okay, med tech is important to us. And then we have Firefly Aerospace. And so there's that component. And for a while we had kind of a electronic vehicle manufacturer in our backyard. So they thought automotive would be good to have in that ecosystem. And obviously semiconductors goes without saying. But that's really important. But then tying that and the potential users for space to the space itself. And so it's identifying areas for development that are really well suited from a topographical standpoint, from a logistics standpoint, to an access standpoint, for those types of businesses. And that goes to, if you need a secure clean room, environment for some users, or you need controlled access for some other users that may have protected and secure information, or you need a different user that needs more kind of like R&D space. So it's kind of that flex tilt wall with an office attached kind of a space. And so it's a long-winded answer to your question, but I think it all gets down to land use and foresight and planning.
That seems like a lot to do it right? Because there's not a lot of land left. So it seems like a lot of pressure to do that well.
I think that's true, but it's unfortunate. We see this at the national stage too. Mm-hmm. It's hard to do long range planning when you have 2-year election cycles, and so. But that's why it's important for municipalities, and we do this at Cedar Park, is we have essentially 2 to 3 year strategic plans, and then we spend a lot of time developing the annual operating plans that fall underneath that, and then we measure those. So, yeah.
Let's see here. So what are some of the challenges from a multi-jurisdiction development state? So, Cedar Park almost does touch Austin, and then you have both the counties overlapping, and you have counties rolling into both cities. So what are some of the challenges you're seeing from that standpoint?
Well, I'd say it's a challenge and an opportunity too. I mean, if you have good relations and you're intentional about making sure that you want to be good partners with your, whether it's other cities or whether it's other municipalities or whether it's your county government, or in some cases it's a state government. So you think about roadway access, and there's parts of our roadway that's controlled by TxDOT. There's parts of our roadway that is owned and maintained by the city, and so, but in some cases those are literally connected by a street light. And so if you want to do road expansions to accommodate your growing population or your infrastructure needs or whatever, then you obviously have to, one, have good relations with the other, jurisdiction, whatever that jurisdiction is. And two, you have to work together on joint planning. Yeah. And a good example, for us, in a microcosm, your listeners may not know exactly where this intersection is, but you and I do. But like Parmer, before it turns into Ronald Reagan, on right there at Whitestone, or RM 1431. Well, the one side is controlled by the state, and the other side is controlled by another jurisdiction, and that's going to have to be fixed because it's a major mobility choke point, within our city. So that's just one example, but there are a lot of examples like that, and it's not just roadway; it's water infrastructure too. We happen to have a regional utility authority that is also involves Leander. It also involves Round Rock, and so we all have to work together in some measure to make those things happen.
Yeah, because Cedar Park is stamped right in the middle of all those, isn't it? So you got to play nice with everyone.
Yeah, well, we have to. Yeah, we have to be fair and balanced and make sure that we're working with our neighbors. So, and a strong Cedar Park depends on a strong Leander and a strong Austin. As much as people like to say we're Cedar Park, we don't even. There's this big city south of us and all that, but the reality of it is that Cedar Park needs a strong Austin and vice versa.
What are some of the key industries that you see in corporate migration, right? So what are some of the key industries that are actually coming out our way?
That's a great question. We've already talked about one, semiconductor. And so the degree, and what a lot of people say is you have a lot of intellectual capital here, a lot of technology, a lot of transplants. I mean, we have a lot of people that are high functioning technology people. And so obviously with Samsung, and now Samsung likely getting some of the Federal CHIPS Act money to help subsidize the development of that whole area out there, then you've got a lot of, second order companies that want to supply, they're involved in that supply chain. They want to be involved. So there's that. There's also a growing medical technology presence here, but I'd say kind of the software and services has always been strong, even though we've seen a lot of notable layoffs and the major Fortune 500 class, but so technology, med tech, and then you also have, I think, a growing kind of manufacturing and construction space, just because even though capital access is tighter than it was, it's still a lot easier and more plenty here in Central Texas because there's just more activity going on, more room to develop, and a favorable business climate. And I would add too that, on that technology piece, there's a lot of people that want to be tied to like Army Futures Command.
Yeah.
That don't necessarily want to be in Austin, but they need to be within a 50-mile peripheral radius.
And I think one of the other industries that you hit on earlier, and a lot of people probably have no clue because I honestly just found out about it, I think earlier this year, but aerospace. Cedar Park, actually, North Austin, Cedar Park, they have an aerospace company up there, right?
All right. Firefly.
Firefly. And they just launched, or they test launched a rocket. So right here in Central Texas, we're doing big things. We talk about big things going on here in Cedar Park or in Austin and all the growth and all the people are moving in. What are some of the things that keep local leaders up at night? What are you guys worrying about for the future of us as a people?
Well, of course, I can speak for my little jurisdiction, but Austin folks may feel a little bit differently. But I think any regional player is going to worry a little bit about growing too fast and making too many commitments without having the appropriate infrastructure. And, it's easy, for some towns to say, we're going to go this direction and we're going to increase, home building, just as for instance. And everybody, obviously we've had 10 years where we've undersupplied the market with housing, and then, couple that with all the net migration in here, and that creates kind of a housing choke point. But, but not having the infrastructure, like i.e. water, wastewater, to handle that, you have to be out of that. You have to be out in front of that. And these things don't happen in like 3-month increments. They happen like in the span of years. So that's, I think, what, because the growth is coming whether we like it or not.
Correct.
And so, there's a challenge to be fiscally prudent and be, balanced budgets, spend your money wisely. Your population's going to grow. So you got to add, you have to add not just the infrastructure, but police, fire, where your neighborhoods are growing. So you can add a fire station, and you have to budget those things. And again, those things, you can't just react to something in real time and make a change. I mean, because you're dealing with budget cycles. And so you got to be, several years ahead of it.
Sounds like a lot. When it comes to local governments and officials who aren't full-time, right? It's not a full-time salaried position. How do you measure success, and how do you hold yourselves accountable to the people who put you into office?
Oh, well, that's a good question. And I'm going to answer it maybe this way. Yes, it's not a full-time job, and the paycheck is not large. But, you do it because you love your city. And I think I have done it for I've been through 2 terms, and, I'm up for reelection on a 3rd term. But, what I can say is that we have a wonderful staff. And I think that's the real blessing. And you cannot understand how complex, even though we've kind of talked around some of the complexities, but you can't understand how complex and how hard it is to run a city unless you're inside to some degree. Either you're on staff or council, or you're on a commission or board or whatever. But a staff is, they're the ones who take the direction from us. So we're giving kind of, this is what we're hearing from our constituents. This is, and arguably we should all be thinking about what's in the best interest of the city, not what's in our best interest. But then you take that mosaic and you put it together and you provide staff a vision, and you spend a lot of time, with sticky notes and things like that, trying to come up with what are the key things that we should be focusing on as a city. And then staff will help fill in those deliverables. And so how we measure success and how we're accountable back to, our stakeholders, i.e. the citizens, is in demonstrating success in executing on our annual operating plans that are driven off of our strategic plan, which itself, not to get too wonky, is all founded on our comprehensive plan, which lays up above everything else. And that's something that, that we looked at a couple of years ago for our little city. But, we first, tackled the comprehensive plan like 10 years ago. And it's supposed to be kind of a durable, I'll call it an investment policy statement on how we should be executing the growth of the city. And then those strategic plans just kind of fit up underneath that.
Then, not to put a stamp on it, but at the end of the day, all local leadership is held accountable by elections, right?
Right.
So it is pretty interesting. And quick side note for all the business owners out there, if you like your business economy, get out there and support what's actively going on. If you don't like it, get out there and change it, whatever side you're on. So local elections have, I don't want to say local elections have consequences, but they have implications on what happens with those local businesses, right? So, speaking of local business, what are some of the resources that are available to help local business owners through their local government that they might not be aware of?
Well, I think a lot of people don't realize that a lot of the smaller cities have really vibrant chambers of commerce. And, if you're looking for an ecosystem, to tap into where, you have people from disparate businesses, but we all have our experiences. You're a business owner. I'm a business owner. We have our unique experiences. Yeah. And I think, it's an environment that I've found in some of the chambers that I'm in touch with, that there's a real strong spirit of wanting to pay it forward.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes it's a peer-to-peer interaction where you're getting in kind of a safe way, because a lot of people business owners are inherently proud and maybe in some respects overconfident. And so they're sometimes reluctant to want to, air the dirty laundry to say, these are the problems I'm having. But if you can break down those barriers, then relationships that you can nurture within an environment like a chamber would be good. Not obviously for certain types of businesses. There's a small business development center that's underneath kind of the SBA, and you can get, some pretty good consultation from that environment.
Yeah. I think it's pretty interesting too. I don't know if it's a Southern thing or what, but Central Texas is probably one of the most welcoming business environments for business owners. It is one of the easiest places if a business owner is out there and starts a new business, get plugged in at the local chamber. Other business owners who aren't getting paid are going to step up and help. If you need a connection here in Central Texas, you and I are in a couple networking groups, and it always surprises me just how welcoming other business owners are to help other business owners and to get them plugged in. So the local chambers are a great place to get plugged in, or any of those. Yeah. Anything else, Juan?
Well, and you mentioned the various networking groups, and some are more industry specific. But it's really, it speaks to the power of association, and and you can have people from a lot of different industries, participate. You've got the Regional Manufacturers Association. You have, the Association for Corporate, Growth, but then you have Texas Association of Business Brokers. So slight plug to TAB.
It's there.
Yeah.
Serve on the state board for that one. Yeah. We love our business
and then a group
brokers
that you and I are both involved in, which is Provisors, and it's just a power of association.
Yeah.
And I think you're absolutely right. There's some kind of a special ethos here in Central Texas where, people want to help each other.
Yeah. And it's because we operate all throughout the state as well. It's not the same when you go to events in Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston. It's just really not. Even though that's not a commercial move here, we're full. They put the cap on it. So go to Houston and Dallas, Fort Worth. No, just kidding. So let me see here. What are some of the biggest challenges that you see facing small municipalities, small government people, and I say small, so like not in Austin, a Cedar Park, right? So what are some of the big challenges that are facing those government officials in the foreseeable years?
Well, I'd start with, financing your operations, right? I mean, you get money from sales tax, you get money from property tax, and in Texas is unique. We have certain caps on kind of like maintenance and operations, or what they call M&O, and you have caps on the appraised value increases. And so, we had a number of years where we had some really strong market based increases, but the appraised values were kind of like trying to catch up, because they were capped.
Yeah.
But, that's getting to a point where that's going to intersect. And so it's going to create more challenges. Again, I'll use challenges and opportunities, right? Because if you're ahead of it and you see it off in the distance, you can react to it. But some people inherently are going to miss that, and they're going to have to be scrambling. And the last thing you want to do is have to like take capital improvement dollars and say, well, we can't do that this year, next year. We got to wait, down the road. And you don't want to do that. But I think the challenges are going to be, for cities, not necessarily using Cedar Park as an example, but we're almost built out. Right?
Yeah.
And so we've benefited from a lot of de novo businesses, and that helps to drive sales tax growth. And then at some point when you get built out, then there's, the opportunity is redevelopment, but the challenge is that you're not going to have that maybe organic growth, and you're going to have to like build, call it like same store sales, over time. And so it just makes you think about that a little bit differently. And long-term funding is something that I think your question was kind of the challenges for cities of that ilk. And I think just the long-term planning and I would add to, and I mentioned this within my comments, but the redevelopment piece, again, for cities that are almost built out,
which is a lot around here. So
right. Yeah. And you look at, some cities that are unbounded, they can continue to annex. And of course, the annexation laws have changed. And so that's a whole other podcast. Yeah. But then you have cities that are bounded, right? And so it's going to place more emphasis on the redevelopment opportunity, but it is a challenge too. But you have to have a vision for that going into it. You can't just, it's not recommended that happens. Well, yeah, hope is not a strategy, but you can't sit around and all of a sudden realize, oh, well, we've got a major redevelopment. What are we going to do? And then that you're already behind the 8 ball on trying to tackle that. And so,
and Cedar Park is already tapped into the doing redevelopment, right?
Right.
There's some major redevelopment going on up that way. So
we have our Bell District, which for a while was the only part of the city that was witnessing property value devaluation. And so that gets your attention, right? In a world where we have inflation and that property values tend to go up, except in this area, and we recognize that. And, even though we're seeing deliverables kind of hit now, like our new library will be coming online in nary a few months, but that planning started literally about 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Or not, very, very close to 10 years ago.
So it's not quick.
No, it's not quick. No.
You guys didn't think about that library last year and just there it is?
Yeah. Nothing in government moves very fast. I think we all read the headlines and understand that pretty well.
What are some of the biggest opportunities that you see for local business owners to get involved with local government and kind of work together to tackle issues that are coming down, or it might be? What's the biggest opportunity zone for local business owners to kind of plug in with local government and have a say and get going?
Yeah, I think that's a provocative question, because you could unpack that in any one of about 50 different ways. But obviously you can say, listen, here's your major employer cohort. Those are the people that are going to be early adopters. And if you're making mobility changes, or you're making, some type of transit change, there are opportunities for public-private partnerships, but you have to have those adopters on board. And I think anything that a municipality does should, attempt to be business friendly, and where that doesn't work is if the municipality says, all right, here's our new set of ordinances, or this is what we're going to be doing. And business owners say, well, nobody talked to us about this. And then all of a sudden you have this very acrimonious adversarial relationship. But if the municipality says, listen here, or local leaders say, listen, here's a vision. This is what we're thinking about. How do you feel about it? Maybe have some focus groups, and you have the early adopters, and then they influence smaller business and that comes along.
Yeah.
And, and they're the ones who, obviously, if you're dealing with a PPP or public-private partnership, they're the ones that can afford to invest in that type of thing, where the smaller business owners are going to be probably net users, maybe meaning that they're not going to have the resources to help fund a transit, some type of transit or other modality or whatever, but they're going to be using it. But they want, I think that's treating them as stakeholders, which they are, and collecting the input from small business owners is really valuable to help local leaders kind of understand what's on the minds of the business community. And because ultimately this is all about, creating primary jobs and it's creating, wealth and opportunity for its citizens. And so, anytime you can engage business, in these kinds of conversations about things like, transit and mobility and things like that, I think it's a win-win, even though you may not see the benefits or the results in real time.
Yeah.
Like I said, everything moves in longer increments, and you just have to be patient, but I think you have to be diligent too. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. And my follow-up with that is, so for business owners that are watching this podcast and they go, you know what, I do kind of want to get a little bit more involved. I want to reach out to my local leadership and see how I can get involved. What recommendations do you have for them? What first steps? Like, how does that look if I'm just business owner sitting at home and I go, wow, Eric had some good points, I'd like to help. What next steps can they take?
Well, I invite everybody to get involved in, understanding your, at least our civic backdrop and getting involved and, attending a meeting. I mean, we know the Boy Scouts are obligated to have some kind of, civic service kind of opportunity. We see Scouts show up at our meetings a lot, but yeah, and that may not be the best start to that to the answer to that question. But I think, getting to know elected officials, reaching out. There are multiple ways to reach them, that you can find on the city's website, any city's website, and getting to know them, getting involved in your chamber, understanding what the chamber advocates for, because every chamber is going to have, some type of advocacy program that, they're going to carry the flag for small business. And so, you want to understand what they're advocating for and to be an input into that. Yeah. But then understanding how local government works. There's a lot of misconceptions, and these are people that don't attend meetings, that don't watch, the replays that are available, that they don't understand how things work. And there's definitely a rigorous legislative process by which, things happen in any city. Yeah.
No, it's interesting too to even dump it down a little bit smaller. But me serving on the state board for some associations, you really don't understand how it works until you get plugged in and go, oh, there's a process, and the process is generally there for a reason, because X, Y, and Z have happened, and it does take some actual time commitment to get plugged in to figure out why things are or are not happening and how to change them. You can't just show up one day and expect it to be fixed. So,
well, and and we were talking about like small businesses, and a lot of these people aren't really going to care. Yeah. Right. I mean, it depends on how small, right? Are you talking about like dry cleaners? They're going to be detached completely from, a lot of things, but they want the help and they want the opportunity to expand their horizons and their visibility in the community. And I think, for those folks, and interesting, I just had this conversation with some members of the chamber yesterday, that's where they should start. Because that, and it's not just about paying a dues and then just saying, hey, putting a sticker in your window. It's about engaging and connecting with other local business owners that have the same problems that they do.
Yeah. Connection is huge. And, go back to Cedar Park, is probably, or Central Texas and Cedar Park included, are one of the most welcoming business communities. So for those business owners that are shy or wondering how to get involved, I'd say just take those first steps, show up to something, show up to a chamber meeting, reach out and take Eric to coffee, do something.
I do like coffee. So
yeah. And, if you're up in the Cedar Parkway, he was talking about that junction at Palmer and 1431, that road that has 4 different names. There's some great coffee shops up that way, some new restaurants up that way. So lot going on up there. As we kind of wrap up here, I want to ask, I think that, we hit on this, and for those who missed it, the paycheck for being a city council member is 0, correct?
Right.
So
at least for our town, some cities actually pay their people, but
for our most local smaller cities, it's not paid. So in order to do that, you really are serving, right? You're taking your own time and donating that back to the community. So I would say, because for those who know me, we've done some nonprofits and stuff like that. You have to have a passion to serve on those nonprofits, or it doesn't work. So I'll wrap up with this. What is your current passion for serving in local government? Why are you doing this?
Well, I'm doing it for the citizens that live here now, and I'm also doing it for the citizens that will be here down the road. And and I think stewardship in all levels is very important. You mentioned the nonprofit stewardship and nonprofit. You can have a viable, perpetual enterprise that is going to provide a sustaining benefit to, our community and the city. Unfortunately, we have very poignant examples of cities that have fallen into, I'll call it disrepair, and then they have to be resurrected. And so, again, nothing happens in real time. Everything is like tectonic shifts over time. And if you're not out in front of it, you're going to get caught. And then you have a real problem on your hands. And so, but I love this city, and there's, and I know that, that there's a lot of love across the city for the city, a lot of pride. And, my sense of duty is to help add, lay a few paved stone bricks to the future. And, at some point it'll be time to hand off, and I'll gladly hand off to the next person that wants to run for place 4. But, and I think for my standpoint, not to kind of wax too political, but, when you serve 3 terms or 6 years, I mean, that's a nice investment of one's lifetime. You think about the average lifespan, and, you can commit, I'll be optimistic and say like 5 to 7% of my life to helping the city, and then hopefully doing some good and laying some foundation for the future, and then let somebody else come in that has, renewed passion and energy and things like that. That's what I think every city should want. And, and I don't feel entitled. I feel like I'm still doing it for the right reasons. And, you just look down the street and you see people playing in the park, or you see, announcements of businesses moving to Cedar Park, and it reminds you the importance of doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it reminds you the importance of the staff that you have that supports. And we have an awesome staff, and city employees. So.
No, that's great. So, as we wrap up here, why don't you go ahead and tell the people how to get a hold of you? If you have anything else for Boyce and Associates, if they want to get a hold of you, what's that look like?
Yes, absolutely. Well, you mentioned it earlier, but our website is basically BoyceWealth.com, or Valuation Company, which is separate from our wealth management company, is BoyceValuations.com. Our phone number is 522-4838. And you can reach me at eric@BoyceWealth.com.
Perfect. And then a quick side note, I'll dump on him there. If you own a business, talk to a business valuation person, find out what your business is worth. You're going to exit someday. And so you know what you're working with and how to plan strategically. I know it's has nothing to do with the election cycle, but talk to business valuation people. They know what they're doing. So as we wrap up here, if you enjoyed the conversation, if you enjoyed what you heard today, You can be sure to connect with us on social media. You can find us on X at the EXP Exchange or visit our website at expertexchange.pro, that expertexchange.pro. For more resources and information related to today's episode, you can reach out to our expert guest online at boycewealth.com. That's BOYCE wealth.com. And remember, success is a journey, and we're thrilled to be a part of yours. We'll catch you on the next episode of the Expert Exchange.
Content on this show is information of a general nature and does not address the circumstances of any particular individual or entity. Nothing in this show constitutes professional or financial advice, nor does any information on the show constitute a comprehensive or complete statement of the matters discussed or the law relating thereto. The Expert Exchange is not a fiduciary by virtue of any person's use of or access to this content. You alone assume the sole responsibility of evaluating the merits and risks associated with the use of any information or content on the show before making any decisions based on such information. In exchange for using the content, you agree not to hold the Expert Exchange, its affiliates, or any third-party service provider liable for any possible claim for damages arising from any decision you make based on information or other content made available to you through the show. The Expert Exchange is not licensed to practice law or provide legal advice. Nothing contained within this show is intended to be an offer to either buy or sell securities.